Hello and welcome to the first episode of this show, The People's Countryside, with me, Stuart the Wild Man Mabbott. We want to tell the stories of real people who live, work and enjoy the countryside, and we basically want to explore what nature gives back to people on a psychological and creative level. And we want to give you, the viewers, an opportunity to get involved and help. Okay, so here's my first guest on this show. Welcome, Chris Mason.
Thank you very much, Stuart.
What's it like to be the very first guest on this TV show?
I'm honoured and privileged, and thank you for asking.
No problem. Well, now, anybody who don't know, Chris Mason is a leading voice in swift conservation in Oxfordshire. Oh, Chris, what are swifts for anybody who don't know?
They're migrant birds, first of all, so they arrive here in May and they're only with us for 3 months or a few weeks more, and they come here solely to breed and then they return to Africa in August.
Which part of Africa?
They move around a lot. They're totally aerial birds except when they're nesting.
Right.
So they feed only on insects, and when they're in Africa they go where the insects are. They've been recorded in southern Africa, as far as south as South Africa, Mozambique, but they spend a lot of time over the rainforests, obviously, where there's a lot of good insect feeding.
Have they been had like radio tracking to know this, or?
They've been ringing these birds for a long time. Young ones in the Oxford Natural History Museum have been ringed for many years, but they didn't ever recover very many, and they only learned a limited amount from that. They've now started using geolocators on a few selected birds, not too many, and that's what's enabled them to establish that they are so mobile and that they do spend all this time over the best insect eating areas, feeding areas.
So, you know, nature is a vast subject. What attracted you to swifts? You could have picked anything, but why swifts?
Well, I've always been a bird watcher since I was a boy. My dad got me interested in that. But then about when I got retired, a few people and a few events actually got me particularly interested in swifts. In one place, a friend was able to save a swift colony that might have been lost to building work. Another friend came over and helped me put swift boxes in the church tower, and then I began to learn that swift numbers were going down and some of the reasons why this was happening. And at the same time I found out about the Cherwell Council and its biodiversity action plan, and I was partly instrumental in them including in that a clause or a sentence or two about swifts and the fact that they would record and try to protect swift nest sites. And I said, well, if you're going to do that, then I'll help you.
So why are they so special?
I think I'm keen on most wildlife, and I think we should be looking after and conserving wildlife, whatever. But I mean, swifts are wonderful birds. They are part of our environment, especially our towns and villages. Lots of people I know, since I've been involved in this project, look out for the swift at the beginning of May when they arrive. They note down the date, and they spend their summer evenings listening to them, watching them scream around the rooftops. They're magical birds, and they're uplifting. People enjoy having them, they appreciate them, and the numbers are going down, and I think there are things that we can do about it.
But, you know, we got viewers out here, many thousands hopefully, so what can you say to make these viewers that are watching us now actually be bothered to do something to help? I mean, why should the viewers be bothered whether the swifts survive or not?
Well, as I say, I think we should be bothered about all wildlife. I think we can do something about swifts, and I think that people, as I get older and my friends get older, and I realise that they do spend time watching and listening and looking out for birds, and I think that not only have we a responsibility to look after them, but I think they add to people's pleasures, and we do, and other people do enjoy them greatly.
So what do swifts need? What do we need to provide for them to bring them in?
Swifts are urban birds, really. They live in our villages and towns. There are very few now that live in the countryside in natural nest places where they used to nest. So they need spaces and places in our homes. They're not easy to spot, the nest places. Unlike house martins and swallows, they don't build a nest which you can see from the outside. They need a little nook or cranny or crevice in a building.
Right.
And one of the things that's happened with swifts over the years is that properties get improved, maintained, and new ones are much better insulated and don't provide the necessary little places for them. So I encourage people to look out to see if there are swifts around near where they live, and if there are, to encourage other people to notice them and enjoy them and be swift friendly if they have to do work.
But I also know you've got this sort of campaign running with churches, trying to get more swifts using churches.
Yes.
Tell us about the church idea.
Well, swifts didn't used to nest in buildings. Originally they nested in trees and cliffs and natural places, and they've linked up with man as we've started making suitable places for them to nest. And I'm sure churches were one of the very first places. Churches and castles and other big buildings were one of the first places that swifts started to use. They've been using churches for thousands of years. Nowadays, like other buildings, churches have to be repaired and maintained. But I'm glad to say that the Diocese of Oxford has been very encouraging to me about, okay, we'll look after swifts with churches in them. We'll look after churches that have nesting swifts if you let us know where they are, and we will, if we have to do work, we'll try to be swift friendly. And if we can, we'll do other things for swift in churches where we're doing major restoration work.
So this could be spread right across the country then, really?
I'm hoping that we can make enough of the link we have with the Oxford Diocese to publicise it and for other dioceses to copy it. Yeah.
Okay, now I want to spin this to you now. I said what drives you, but on an emotional level, why do you care emotionally that this project is a success as a human being?
Well, I think the things that really please and encourage me and drive me on are, one, just the joy of spending an evening listening to and watching swift as they scream around some church or old building like the one in this garden. Secondly, I do get a great deal of satisfaction from encouraging and convincing other people about what they can do and how they can do it. And a number of the things that we have done have actually resulted in beneficial, good things being done for swift. We've put up boxes in places. We've encouraged the council to install bricks and boxes on their buildings, and when they're used, when they swifts find them and start nesting in them, that really does give me a lift and convinces me that it's all worthwhile.
So is that coming from you, or do you feel nature is emotionally giving back to you, or do you think it's coming from within yourself?
I think it's a bit of each. I'm very interested in conservation things, not just swift conservation things, but if you feel that what you are doing has even made a tiny impact, then I think that is very rewarding and uplifting and persuades one that it's all worthwhile. And actually seeing something that you've done in use or making a difference is emotionally very uplifting too.
But on the edge of this building here, there's a swift nest hole. That's the ideal thing, is it? In that sort of building or in fascias of a house?
Yeah, I mean, we've got here an old Cotswold stone building that's been repaired, and the owners have done wonderful things to try to encourage swifts into it. So in this case, there weren't swifts nesting in these buildings before. In the last few years, a few pairs have begun to nest, and this year one of the great things is that in the last few weeks we've actually seen swifts prospecting for new nest holes, or looking at other of the nest holes that they've created, and hopefully they'll come back next year and actually use them.
Okay, so one of the remits of this show is to link you with the viewers, and the viewers with people like Chris. What is it you can ask the viewers today? What help do you need to drive you on?
I'd like people to make a special effort to look out for swifts where they live, in the towns or villages where they are, to notice the birds and then to see if they can spot where they're actually nesting. I mean, I'm available and happy to talk to people wherever they are, but I'm more interested in other people in communities knowing more about, understanding more about, appreciating swifts more. Because if they learn about them and know about their lifestyle and the amazing fact that they're totally aerial except when they're nesting, they don't ever land. The young birds that fledge this year won't probably land for 2 years or more before they come back to nest. These extraordinary facts about swifts, if people understand them and bear them in mind if they see them around their places and homes, then I think they're more likely to say, oh, we really ought to find out where those swifts are nesting. We ought to encourage the owners to be swift friendly. We ought to be looking at asking the council or planning applications to install swift nest boxes or bricks when they're making changes to buildings. This sort of thing is what I hope will happen.
So what's your contact details so the viewers can contact you? How can they get in touch?
Well, I'm involved with the Cherwell Swift Conservation Project. My email address is mason@cando.eclipse.co.uk. But if you Google Cherwell Swifts, I'm sure you'll find my details easily, and you can go onto the Cherwell District Council website and find information about me as well.
Okay. Well, thanks for being the first guest. The Wild Man is now going to go to a different part of Oxfordshire. We're in Kirtlington at the moment, which is sort of North Oxfordshire, getting that way. We're going to go just outside Oxford city centre, and we're going to meet somebody else who's I think is rather interesting. But thanks for coming on.
Good.
And
Thank you, Stuart.
off we go.